was the climate change summit that was held, where around about 135 world leaders descended on the UN to hold a summit. Now, I'm joined by the ambassador here in France, or particularly in Paris, Laurence Tubiana. She is for the climate negotiations. It's wonderful to have your time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very happy to meet you and talk with South Africa through your.
I'm so glad, because climate change is an issue that I think it's very worrying, and it's good to see that world leaders are taking it so seriously. You've just returned from New York. In your view, how did it go?
I think it went well. First, because we sense the urgency in the speech of many of them. Everyone has its own story on climate disasters, droughts, floods, heat waves, many problems, disease that were coming because of the local pollution and the global warming effect. So sea level rise, of course, the islands were there very represented. And this sense of emergency was stronger than before, because, again, each country, Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Africa or others, were talking about what was happening at home, and even US. President Obama made a long speech on the impact of climate change at home. And this, I think, is a very solid base for next year discussion, to have really an agreement, because climate change really is now there. It's not for the future. It's now there.
Yeah, I believe so, and that President Barack Obama actually volunteered that he would be the man, or he would be the one that would lead this international campaign to finally sign a binding agreement after 20 years of negotiations. Do you honestly believe that next year here in Paris we're finally going to see this agreement?
I think everyone, every government, not of course with the same conviction, but everyone thinks that is a moment. We have the convention in 1992, we have then the Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and now we have to have something really different, inclusive, and that really shift the orientation of the economic model towards a different direction. And this is something like everybody is tired of negotiating, and everybody is understanding that he cannot do things at home if there is not a global framework. So that is shared by everybody.
Yeah. There was an article that I did read that was a little bit skeptical, and I think the skepticism came from a South African angle, and the lady I'm talking about was Graça Machel, who spoke near the end of the climate summit. To quote her, she said, "Leaders have failed to offer an adequate response to climate change, and millions of poor countries are suffering. Leaders need to go back to the drawing board and step up their ambitions." Do you think this is a fair comment after what you've just witnessed?
I think when I look at the summit, the ones who were in a way more advancing or more going forward and speaking up were more the cities, the private companies, the governors or the governors of regions than the governments themselves. Why? Because the government didn't want to reveal what they would propose next year. So I understand her comment, and anyway, when you look at the reality, she's totally right. We are not up to the challenge. So Graça Machel was totally right, is totally right. Then now, of course, I hope that these head of states make their minds. I understand they cannot, or they didn't want to tell things too soon, but now they have to say that by next year, the beginning of next year, they have to show they will orient their policies in a different way. But we know some countries are not willing to do so, so international pressure will be very useful, I think.
Yeah. I think we need to, however, give accolades to France, because your president was the only president and the only country that committed to donating $1 billion for the Poor Countries Climate Change Fund. I think around about 2.3 billion has been raised, but the UN's been hoping for between 10 and 15 billion. But France committing, is this basically an indication of how serious France is fighting climate change?
I hope. I'm very proud that President Hollande was there, very enthusiastic. He spoke about a revolution of climate in his speech, and the announcement of $1 billion for the climate fund is a very strong announcement. We must say that Angela Merkel did that some months ago. She decided in July. So it's good that Germany and France announced 2 big commitments to the fund. I hope the other ones, some has done, of course, other commitments, but more reduced, but I hope some will come before Lima, because we have to have 10 billion by Lima at least.
Yeah, at least. Well, we'll have to see, because that's happening at the end of this year. You know, just our experience as being here in Paris, and it's been an incredible journey for us, because we've seen a very different way, particularly when it comes to transport, of getting around the city. And for me, what stands out is particularly the incredible bicycle sharing system that you have here, which is, I think, in so many ways decreasing carbon emissions from vehicles and giving people the opportunity to be outside, to get fit. These are small things that a government can do to try and alleviate the situation. What else is France doing? I mean, how are you trying to help that other countries can learn from, perhaps South Africa being an example?
Yes, transport is a very, in a way, easy way. Something of transport are very difficult when it's like tramways or trains, because that's very expensive. But you can do not things that are not that expensive, like a bus or rapid transit or bicycles, or that type of small innovation that can really make people come from private car to public transport. And I think that's a very good news. In France, the success of Vélib in Paris was incredible. Yeah. And many cities now are using that, even New York, or you go in many cities, there is a system and it works very well. And I think most cities have to think through that they cannot just live with congestion, air pollution. Just imagine Paris was much less private car. Probably the ones could be electric, the one who will still there. And then you have a pure atmosphere, very peaceful, without noise. That's really the city of tomorrow. That's not the millions cars congested. That is not development, in my view.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what we've been emphasizing while we've been here, is South Africa needs to work on its public transport system to try and reduce. Some closing notes for us, and perhaps if having looked at South Africa's system and how we are doing in the fight against climate change, carbon emissions, how are we doing? What are your views on South Africa?
I think what is fascinating me, it's a public discussion. At least many people, many stakeholders are involved in the design of the new policy. I found that labor unions, academics, industries, of course government people are designing these long-term pathways that is under discussion in South Africa. On one side, I think it's really wonderful, but it is about as well social inclusion, and I understand that the problem of coal for South Africa is a central one. So how we solve this issue, you can get energy out of this very polluting source. It's a major issue of cost, even if we know already that some technology could be used. So this is, I think, the shift that South Africa has to make. At the same time that you have, of course, to get more access for poor people that can get energy and decent housing, which is, I think, certainly a major issue for your country.
Thank you for talking to us. Thanks so much for your time. Talking to us was Laurence Tubiana, who is the Ambassador for Climate Negotiations and the Special Representative for COP21 Climate Conference that's going to be happening in 2015. You'll remember that in Durban was COP17. That was held in 2011. Well, this year, Peru is going to be the host, the city of Lima. So we're just hoping that decisions are made fast and furiously.